The kitchen was filled with the warm aroma of grilled beef bulgogi, perfectly steamed rice, and kimchi jjigae, Jungkook's absolute favorite dishes. Wine carefully packed everything in a sleek black lunchbox, making sure to arrange it neatly. A soft smile played on her lips as she muttered to herself. You left so early without eating anything. I bet you will be starving by now. She let out a small sigh before glancing at the clock. She had spent so much time preparing the food, making sure everything was perfect. After finishing, she went to her room and casually picked out an outfit. She wanted to look presentable but not too formal. A pastel pink blouse with delicate lace details paired with a white A-line shirt seemed perfect. She styled her hair into soft waves, applied minimal makeup, and wore her favorite pearl earrings. Simple yet elegant. Okay, this looks good. I hope he likes it. With that, she grabbed the lunchbox and headed to Jungkook's office. The receptionist, a middle aged woman with short brown hair, smiled as soon as she saw Wine enter. Mrs. Jones, it's nice to see you again. Are you here to meet Mr. Jones? Yes, but I heard he is in a meeting. I will wait in his office if that's okay. Of course, go ahead. He should be finishing soon. Wine thanked her before walking into Jungkook's office. She had been here a few times before, but every time it amazed her. The place was spacious with floor to ceiling windows that overlooked the city. His sleek black desk was perfectly organized, and the scent of his calling lingered in the air. She smiled softly, running her fingers over the edge of his desk. This place really suits him. Cold, intimidating, and powerful. She sat down on her leather couch, waiting patiently, but just as she started admiring the frame awards on the shelf, a familiar voice reached her ears. A feminine, overly sweet voice. Her heart dropped. She knew that voice, Nicole. Nicole walked beside Jungkook, her bright red lips curled into a smile as she spoke, and immediately, honestly, Jungkook, that deal wouldn't have happened without you. You were incredible in that meeting. Well, it was a team effort, Nicole, but yeah, I'm glad we got it. Nicole placed a hand on his arm, squeezing slightly. Wine, who was watching from inside the office, felt her breath hitch. Her smile wavered slightly, her fingers unconsciously gripping the edge of the couch. Jungkook pulled his arm away almost immediately, not paying much attention to Nicole's actions. Instead, his sharp eyes landed on Wine. A small but genuine smile tugged at his lips. You're here, Wine. Wine quickly stood up, forcing a smile despite the small sting in her chest. Yeah, actually, I made lunch for you. You left this morning without eating anything. So I thought you would be hungry. Jungkook's eyes widened, slightly surprised. Then his expression softened. You made my favorite lunch? Why, nodded. Thank God I was starving. Without hesitation, he pulled her into a hug. Wine stiffened, her eyes widened in shock. Jungkook wasn't the type to show affection so openly, especially in front of others. Nicole's point of view, what the hell? Nicole's hands clenched into fists at the sight of Jungkook holding Wine so easily. She forced a smile, but her eyes burned with annoyance. I will never let them be together. Jungkook finally pulled back, glancing at Wine with an amused look. And guess what? We finally sealed the deal that Nicole and I had been preparing for. Really? That's great. Congratulations. Nicole rolled her eyes subtly, crossing her arms. She hated how effortlessly supportive Vine was. Yeah, congrats to us. But her mind was already plotting. Jungkook led Vine to the small sitting area in his office, a sleek glass table between the two black leather chairs. Vine placed the lunchbox carefully on the table and started unpacking the neatly arranged dishes. Grilled beef bulgogi, steaming white rice, kimchi jjigae, and a side of 𝗕𝗂𝘀. You made all this? Rising a bro as he sat down. Yeah, I know you skipped breakfast, so I thought you might be hungry. Nicole, who had been standing near Jungkook's desk, crossed her arms, tilting her head slightly. Wow, Wine, that's so thoughtful of you. But don't you think he's too busy for a homemade lunch? Wine ignored the slight jab and focused on Jungkook, who was already taking a bite of the bulgogi. He chewed slowly, nodding in approval. It's good. I'm glad you like it. Nicole rolled her eyes but quickly recovered, stepping closer. You know, Jungkook, we should celebrate this deal properly. How about dinner tonight, just the two of us? One's hands, which were gently settling down the chopsticks, paused for a second. Jungkook didn't seem to think much of it, simply shrugging. I'll see if I have time. Nicole took that as an opportunity to push further. Come on, we worked so hard for this. One dinner won't hurt. Why lowered her gaze, feeling slightly uncomfortable at the way Nicole spoke so freely with him. Trying to distract herself, she took a spoonful of soup and focused on her. Why does she act like they are more than just business colleagues? Nicole suddenly let out a small gasp, making both Wine and Jungkook look at her. Oh no, I think something got into my eye. Before anyone could react, she leaned closer to Jungkook, touching his arm. Can you check for me? It really stings. Wine clenched her fingers on the chopsticks, her stomach twisting slightly at the side. Jungkook, however, seemed unfazed. He simply leaned back, shaking his head. Use a mirror. Nicole blinked, clearly not expecting the rejection. Oh, right. Wine bit the inside of her cheek to stop a small smile from forming. As the lunch continued, Nicole kept finding ways to get closer to Jungkook. Can you like touching his sleeve when she spoke, laughing a little too loudly at his words and throwing subtle glances at Wine to gauge her reaction. Wine tried to remain unaffected, but the atmosphere in the room felt suffocating. Finally, Nicole sighed dramatically. Jungkook, do you remember that business gala in Paris last year? We had such a great time, didn't we? Wine's grip on the spoon tightened slightly. Jungkook didn't seem too interested, barely looking up from his food. It was work, really, because I remember us sneaking out onto the balcony and talking for hours. Wine's heart clenched. She wasn't sure if Nicole was exaggerating or telling the truth, but it didn't matter. The way she said it, the way she looked at Jungkook was clearly mean to get under Wine's skin. Jungkook, however, didn't react much. He placed his chopsticks down, wiping his mouth with a napkin before speaking in a neutral tone. Nicole, if you are done eating, you should go back to work. Nicole blinked, clearly thrown off. Oh, come on, Jungkook, don't be so cold. I was just reminiscing. There is nothing to reminisce about. Nicole's face stiffened, but she quickly recovered, forcing a laugh. All right, I will leave. For now, she grabbed her purse and stood up, giving Wine one last glance before exiting the office. Wine let out a breath she didn't realize she was holding. The room was silent for a moment, then Jungkook spoke. Don't take anything Nicole says seriously. She likes to talk. Wine looked at him, slightly surprised that he addressed it. I wasn't. Chungo glanced at her briefly but didn't say anything more. He simply stood up, fixing his suit. I have another meeting. You should go home. His tone wasn't harsh, but it wasn't warm either. It was just neutral. Wine nodded quickly, gathering the empty lunchbox. As he walked toward the door, he felt a slight hesitation in her steps. She had come all this way just to see him, to bring him lunch. But in the end, she wasn't sure if it even mattered to him. Without another word, she left the office. After Wine returned home, she spent the rest of the evening lost in her book, curled up on the couch. The house was quiet, the only sound being the faint ticking of the clock. It wasn't long before she heard the front door open. Jungkook had returned. He walked inside, his suit slightly wrinkled from the long day. He loosened his tie as he glanced at her, his expression neutral. Did you have dinner? Wine closed her book and looked up at him. No, I was waiting for you. Jungkook exhaled, running a hand through his hair. Okay, eat the food. I will come after freshening up. Okay, she got up and headed to the kitchen, reheating the dishes she had prepared earlier. As she set the table, she couldn't help but glance at the clock. It was taking longer than usual. Just as she placed the last dish, Jungkook entered, his hair slightly damp from the shower, wearing a fresh black shirt. In his hand, he carried a small, elegant bag. Wine's heart fluttered. Did he buy something for me? A small smile unknowingly formed on her lips as she waited, anticipation bubbling inside her. Jungkook held out the bag toward her. Here, take it with care. It's for someone special. Her smile faltered instantly. Oh, she forced herself to take the bag, setting it aside on the table. Without even looking inside, her heart, which had lifted with excitement just moments ago, now sank like a stone. It must be for Nicole. Biting the inside of her cheek, she tried to push the thought away. With a bitter smile, she quietly picked up her spoon and started eating. Jungkook, who had been watching her closely, noticed the sudden shift in her mood. She had been happy before, but after he handed her the bag, her energy dropped. She barely spoke, barely looked at him. Silently he finished his food, dabbing his lips with a napkin before reaching out and holding her hand. She flinched, startled. What are you doing? He didn't answer. Instead, he gently pulled her hand forward. Pass me the bag I gave you. Confused, he handed it over. Jungkook opened it, pulling out a delicate gold bracelet. The intricate design shimmered under the dining room light. Wine's eyes widened. Before she could react, Jungkook carefully took her wrist and clasped the bracelet around it. His fingers were warm against her skin as he fastened it securely. Then, without a word, he lifted her hand and pressed a soft kiss against her knuckles. Her breath hitched, but she said it was for. Jungkook's lips curled into a slight smirk. Someone special, he nodded, meeting her wide, stunned eyes. Obviously, you're my wife. Who else could be more special than you? A warm blush spread across her cheeks as she lowered her gaze. Suddenly, feeling shy, Jungkook chuckled. Did you like it? She nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Thank you so much. It's beautiful. Not more than you. One's heart pounded in her chest as she tried to pull her hand back, but he wouldn't let go. Jungkook, hmm. He tightened his grip slightly, watching her struggle with amusement. Let go. And if I don't? Her flustered expression only made him chuckle more. Eventually, he let her go, but not before ruffling her hair playfully. Together, they cleared the table, and to Wine's surprise, Jungkook helped her wash the dishes. After finishing their chores, They went inside the room. Jungkook sat on the bed, casually scrolling through his phone, while Wine went inside the bathroom to change. The room was peaceful, with only the soft hum of the heater filling the air. But that peace didn't last long. Jungkook's phone suddenly rang. He glanced at the screen. Nicole. Sighing, he picked up the call. Jungkook, there is an important meeting tomorrow. We need to prepare for it. Jungkook leaned back against the headboard, rubbing his temple. Okay, I will come to the office. Can't you come to my house instead? Jungkook frowned. No, come to my office. There was a pause. Oh, okay. Right then, Wine stepped out of the bathroom, dressed in her comfortable nightwear. She frowned slightly upon seeing Jungkook already wearing his coat. Where are you going? Jungkook finished buttoning his cuffs before looking at Nicole called. There is an important meeting tomorrow. We need to prepare for it. Wine's lips parted slightly, but she quickly masked her emotions. Oh, okay. Jungkook walked up to her, tilting her chin up gently with his fingers. Just sleep, okay? You don't have to wait for me. She nodded, even though she knew she wouldn't be able to sleep. He leaned down, pressing a kiss to her forehead before grabbing his keys and leaving. As the door clicked shut behind him, Vine sat down on the bed, staring at the bracelet around her wrist. A small part of her was happy, but another part of her felt empty. She lay down, curling into herself, but no matter how much she tried, sleep didn't come. At 2:35 a.m., the doorbell rang, startling Vine, who was still awake. She hurried to open the door, only to find Nicole holding Jungkook up. His head was dropped, and he was barely conscious. His shirt was slightly unbuttoned. Jungkook, help me, he's too heavy. Wine quickly took Jungkook's other arm, supporting his weight as they dragged him inside. She guided them toward his bedroom, her heart pounding. As soon as they reached the bed, Wine leaned forward to check on him, but before she could get close, Nicole grabbed her arm and shoved her back roughly. Can't you see he's not in a good state? Stop being dramatic. Wine stumbled, steadying herself before glaring at her. What happened to him? None of your business. Before Wine could argue, Nicole forcefully pushed her out of the room, causing Wine to slip and hit the floor. Pain shot through her wrist, but that wasn't what hurt the most. It was the fact that Jungkook was inside and she had been locked out. She sat there for a moment, staring at the closed door, her eyes streaming with unshed tears. Why she's acting like she owns him? Wine clenched her hands into fists, her chest tightening with frustration and worry. The next morning, Jungkook woke up with a throbbing headache. He groaned, rubbing his temples. As he tried to recall last night, his body felt heavy and his eyes shot open when he noticed Nicole sleeping beside him. What the? He sat up abruptly, pushing her away. Jungkook, relaxed. Ignoring her, Jungkook stormed to the door and swung it open, only to freeze. There on the floor, curled up in the hallway, was Wine. His breath hitched, her arm was bruised, and her wrist had an angry red scratch mark. Wine, he immediately crouched down, carefully picking her up and carrying her inside the room. He placed her gently on the bed before shaking her awake. Wine, wake up. Her eyelashes fluttered, and the moment of her eyes landed on him, she threw her arms around his neck, hugging him tightly. Are you okay? Jungkook stiffened at her concern. Despite everything, she still cared about him. He exhaled, rubbing her back gently. Yeah, but what were you doing on the floor? One's lips parted slightly and she hesitated before glancing at Nicole. She. Jungkook followed her gaze and his eyes darkened when he noticed a scratch on her wrist. Who did this? Nicole, she pushed me last night and didn't let me take care of you. She said I shouldn't disturb you too. Jungkook felt his blood boil. His hands clenched into fists, and without another word, he turned toward Nicole, his face completely void of emotion, but his eyes screamed fury. What the are you doing in my room instead of my wife? I was just. And how the hell did you dare to lay a hand on wine? Nicole stepped back, fear creeping into her eyes as Chunko grabbed a fistful of her hair and yanked her hand back slightly. Chungkook, I thought she would disturb you, so you are the third wheel here, not her. She's my wife. Nicole gasped as his grip tightened slightly. I didn't even raise my voice at her, and you've pushed her. Chungkook, please, it hurts. I'm your friend. She's my wife. Now get out. Nicole hesitated, but seeing the pure rage in his eyes, quickly grabbed her things and rushed out of the house. Jungkook sighed heavily, rubbing his temples before turning back to Ayn, who was sitting on the bed with teary eyes. He walked toward her, his gaze softening as he sat beside her. I passed out from overwork. I didn't drink, if that's what you were thinking. Wine nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. Let me see your wrist. She hesitated, but he carefully took her hand, his touch surprisingly tender as he examined the scratch. She hurt you. Without another word, he grabbed the ointment from the drawer and silently applied it to her wound. His fingers lingered on her skin for a moment before he spoke again. Does it hurt? Not anymore. A small silence filled the room before Jungkook finally spoke. Don't ever sleep on the floor again. One bit her lip, nodding. If something happens, come to me first. One's eyes widened, slightly surprised by his words. Jungkook pulled Wine into a warm embrace, his arms tightening around her small frame. Trust me, okay? She nodded against his chest, her heart pounding. He leaned down, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead, lingering for a moment before whispering, I won't let anyone hurt you again.